All right, now let's get Labour's take on things this morning from Shadow Home Secretary Yvette Cooper. Good morning, Shadow Home Secretary.
Good morning, Trevor.
Now, last week on this programme, your colleague Jonathan Reynolds said that sanctions on Russia have had a significant effect. Oddly enough, the ruble is now worth more than it was before the invasion. Do you think that we need to do more than is currently being proposed by government? We've just heard from Kit Malthouse.
We do support stronger action. We support the action that the government has taken to provide military support for Ukraine to be able to defend itself and to continue to do so. And we also support strong sanctions. And we think we need to be continually looking at where further we can go to put maximum economic pressure on Russia and on Putin's government. That includes looking at individual sanctions. That also includes looking more widely. But we also need to do this in a united way across not just Europe but across the world, because I think it's been that united front that has been really important in addressing this really cruel and vile illegal war from Putin.
Are you worried that that united front is essentially being punctured a bit by the German reluctance to stop gas? We understand how difficult it is for them, but it's not as difficult as it is for the Ukrainian people, is it?
Obviously, it's hugely difficult for the Ukrainian people, and they have shown incredible bravery in the response to this illegal invasion as well, and also in response to war crimes that are taking place and the terrible bombardment. So that's why we do, yes, urge Germany and other countries to really all work together to try and reduce that dependency on Russian oil and gas, and to actually have alternatives, because this is obviously a part of a broader sanctions approach. We have to have the strongest possible action to put the pressure on.
There are things that we can do ourselves, and I want to come to the issue of refugees in a moment, which is your portfolio. But on the question of weapons, Prime Minister's offering a fresh delivery of weapons to Ukraine yesterday. Do you think that we are doing enough on the military and the weapons end of things?
Well, we support the action the government's taken on this, and I think this is an important area. As you say, there are huge differences between us and the government on the support for refugees, where we don't think the government's gone far enough, but we actually support the government on the action that they've taken to provide military support for Ukraine. And it's good, I think, that we've got that cross-party agreement on that, and we're going to have to continue to do so, because this doesn't look like this is coming to a quick end. It's important that some of Russia's objectives have been frustrated by the bravery of what Ukraine has been doing, but we also know that they are continuing this really horrendous bombardment, and we've seen obviously the cases of torture as well. But I think the issue around the refugee visas is really important. It is shocking. It is just truly shameful, the long delays that we have in getting Ukrainian families visas to come stay with British families who want to host and support them. 30,000 people are waiting for visas. Around half of them have been waiting for more than 10 days. Many of them have been waiting for 3 weeks now, and having filled in all of the forms. This is just disgraceful delays, and I do not understand why Priti Patel is so failing to get a grip on this.
Well, whatever they're doing, one simple way of cutting through this would simply be to drop the visa requirement, as has been the case in countries on the continent. Would Labour support the removal of the visa requirement for Ukrainian asylum seekers, essentially?
We think you should drop the extra bureaucracy. You can simply do security.
Well, I'm asking specifically about the visa requirement.
Kind of
Would
emergency.
you drop that?
Yeah. So we've described a kind of emergency visa, which is effectively just the security checks. That's what we need to do. You don't need a lot of this additional visa requirements. For example, to come on the Homes for Ukraine scheme, Ukrainian families are supposed to prove their residence as to where they were living before the 1st of January. So people are uploading utility bills or other kinds of details. That then has to be checked by caseworkers. That then adds to delays. The point about security checks is ministers and officials have themselves admitted you can do them on the spot. You can do them within a matter of hours. So there is absolutely no excuse for these weeks of delays. We should be able to just do this and grant people permission to come pretty much instantly and get those checks done straight away.
So to be clear, an emergency visa is still a visa, but you would only apply one test which you think could be passed within hours about whether somebody's a security risk or not. Do you really believe that?
Yes.
How would you know?
With the
How would you know? Somebody says, I'm not a Russian, I'm not a member of the Wagner group, I'm not coming to us. How would we actually be able to know that within hours?
These are the standard security checks that we already do. Sort of standard checks with passports and so on. And ministers and officials have themselves said, that security checks can be done online. They've themselves said that these security checks can be done either on the spot. You're effectively checking somebody against a database of wanted criminals. You're checking people in that respect. So those are the kinds of checks that you can do really quickly. And ministers and officials have both admitted that they can do them really quickly. That's not what's holding things up. It's not the security checks. It's the fact that they've added huge amounts of bureaucracy, that they've never got a grip of this. And bear in mind, the Home Office had the opportunity to prepare. They had months to prepare for this. 6 weeks ago, we were urging them to take action, and they haven't done so. Priti Patel wanted to simply use the existing visa system. You remember we had that awful moment when a Home Office minister effectively was saying people should get a seasonal workers visa, perhaps to come and pick fruit. They tried not to set up a proper scheme, and then when they did do so, they added huge amounts of bureaucracy to it. But it's letting everyone down. You have a disabled man, for example, who can't leave Ukraine until he's got his full visa, in a case that I know of. You have mums and kids who are running out of money, and it is shameful. British people want to be generous and want to provide support, and Priti Patel is not letting them.
OK, forgive me for hurrying you up, but we do need to talk about domestic politics a bit. One question, or maybe a couple of questions on this. Your former Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell said in 2019, in the manifesto, actually, that you fought on, that Labour would scrap non-dom status altogether. Is a future Labour government still going to do that?
Well, Rachel Reeves has set up a review of all those sorts of tax exemptions and tax arrangements, and that is underway at the moment. But look, there is a clear issue at the moment, which is why you're asking the question, about Rishi Sunak's household tax arrangements at a time when he has been putting taxes up for everyone, asking everybody else to pay over £1,000 more. His household has had special tax arrangements that allow them to pay less tax. That is just unfair, and that, I think, is why people are so angry about what's been happening, and also the fact that they've just not been transparent about it when there could have been conflicts of interest in place as well.
Well, what everybody acknowledges is that what she has done is perfectly lawful. As far as I understand it, lots of other people do something similar, and you might think that, you know, it's ethical to do something different, but that she hasn't actually done anything wrong. And I'm wondering whether Labour has the view that this perfectly lawful status should now not be available to people.
Well, as I said, Rachel has a review underway, and we have previously proposed reforms in exactly this area. But the issue now is that actually the ethics matter. If you are part of a household where you are asking people across the country to pay more, to put taxes up to a 70-year high, and everybody across the country is really feeling the strain, I don't know how people are going to be managing with the cost of living in lots
Indeed,
of families across the country.
And I asked Mr. Morehouse about that, but the problem is
arrangements in place. I think that is a serious problem.
I understand the point, but it's quite difficult to take the complaint that she should have done something different if you can't say that you would make it unlawful.
So I don't think that's right. I think that ethics do matter when you're in government, particularly as there may be a conflict of interest here as well. So we don't know, for example, whether the Chancellor declared a conflict of interest when he was making decisions on policies. There's some policies reported that do affect non-DOMs, people with non-DOM status. We also don't know what the facts are around some of the reports about whether they've been beneficiaries from tax havens. And we also don't know some of the wider issues about why the Chancellor has had a permanent residence card in the US at the same time as being a member of Parliament and a member of the British government.
And I asked Mr Malthouse about that.
Those are
I'm interrupting you simply because...
to ask in order to make sure that you don't have a conflict of interest. Sorry, Trevor, sorry.
Forgive me, I'm interrupting you because I know that you want to talk about antisocial behaviour, and I just wanted to give you half a minute to say Labour's got a policy out today to tackle antisocial behaviour by creating police hubs and so on. Why not just more police?
Well, we do think that we need more police, and particularly more police out on the beat in our communities. We had huge cuts to policing, which the government has finally accepted it needs to start to reverse, although there are still fewer police than there were in 2010. But even now, we're still not seeing the police back in the neighbourhoods. It was one of the most important policies Labour had, was to set up neighbourhood policing in our communities to tackle antisocial behaviour. We're at a time when crime has gone up, when prosecutions have gone down, and in many communities, antisocial behaviour is rife and isn't being dealt with. That's why we want to set up neighbourhood police hubs in communities, in towns right across the country to bring together the police, local council officers to tackle that antisocial behaviour that is making people's lives a misery. And we'd pay for it by saying cancel the royal yacht that neither the Navy nor the royal family want and use that money to cut crime and antisocial behaviour.
Won't give you many more cops that cancelling the royal yacht, and that's 200 million in 1 year. I've done some arithmetic. It gives you about, I think, 60 police officers in each police force, each of the 43 police forces across England.
So the Royal Yacht funding would fund the hubs, it would fund the centres. For example, in Castleford, in my constituency, we've persuaded the police and the council to work together to set up a hub. There's another one, Redbridge Council have been setting them up, which are basically a base for local police and councils officers to be based in the community, rather than to be based miles away, to be based locally in the community and to work with the community in hotspots of antisocial behaviour and to set up neighbourhood prevention teams. What the Conservatives have done is they've just collapsed any of the work on antisocial behaviour. We used to have loads of things going on. They pulled back from it. They've completely decimated neighbourhood policing. We're saying bring back neighbourhood policing and bring back the action on antisocial behaviour as well.
Yvette Cooper, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.